I'm so excited to be up here and share this story with you guys. This story has been a year in the making, no joke. It's kind of crazy. And many of you know that we took a road trip in June out west, mostly to visit my sister and her family. But what you don't know is that without Fireside, I'm not sure that trip would have happened. Let me explain your impact on my family. So my kids have a book called How Full Is Your Bucket? The idea is that we all carry an imaginary bucket that is filled or emptied by the people and experiences we encounter. Last summer, a close friend betrayed us, my whole family. It deeply affected every member of my family. We were devastated, so much that it actually derailed our summer trip to Branson to see Esther at Sight and Sound. For months after it happened, I was heartbroken. And even though I might have had a smile on my face, I was walking around without hope, and my bucket was not only empty, but just broken. In October, things got even worse with this situation. My own discernment in who I could trust or couldn't trust was shattered, and crying every day became a norm for me. It was at that point that I dropped my bucket. Late October, during our second time at Fireside, Will was teaching on Titus. I was so sad that making eye contact with anyone was hard, and I just sat with my head down trying not to cry. Toward the end of service, Will's whole countenance changed and his voice softened. He put down his Bible and he said, "Maybe you're here tonight and you're tired." I raised my eyes and I looked at him. He said, "Maybe you're tired of Christians being hypocritical, being hurtful, and not reflecting Christ well." I took a deep breath because how did he know the battle in my heart? Will continued. He said, "My prayer for you is that you wouldn't let people, broken, sinful, awful people, prevent you from seeing the wonderful Jesus." Silent tears of relief and hope ran down my cheeks. I looked over and made eye contact with Damien, feeling so much validation and relief. I had taken my eyes off Jesus. And in that moment, with those words, "Will, you handed me back my bucket." And it even had a little bit of hope in the bottom of it. The next week, Michelle bravely shared a piece of her tender heart with us. I remember thinking about how strong she was. And that same night, Josh spoke from Genesis about God's grace. More hope filled my bucket, knowing that despite how broken I felt today, there was hope that I would someday feel better. Over the next few weeks after service, Sarah and Amy casually asked me questions about homeschooling. Neither of them knew it, but you really were filling my bucket. Connecting with the Moore family, getting hugs from Bonnie and Donna, hearing about Paul and Elsa's bees, and chatting with Brittany and Grayson about adventuring and camping and just being outdoors, all helped fill my bucket. I remember one night after a very long day, we hesitated to gather the crew and head to a Connect group at the Torrance house. But once we got there, and Heather came around the corner to greet us, her smile made me want to cry. I felt so welcomed and so very safe. The sweet conversations that night with Mark about your house, Carly about your pregnancy, laughing with Heather and Josh, and Heather and Ryan, Emily, Kenna, Allie, Lexi, and Gladys were all ladles full of hope being poured into my bucket. I wish I could make eye contact with each one of you and thank you. Over the next few months, I was intentional about staying away from those who were dipping into my bucket and spent more time with bucket fillers, many of you. As time passed, I stopped looking backwards and started looking forward at what could be. We began to consider a trip to Utah. I hadn't hugged my sister or her 4 kids in over 3 years. The more we looked into it, honestly, it didn't look too hopeful. I know that we all needed this trip. So in March, as a family, we prayed. We prayed for clarity and provision. Well, that very week, a friend of a friend reached out asking us to watch her 2 dogs for the most of April while she transitioned her job and home to Toronto. And that same week, 2 other friends asked if we could watch their dogs too. Our home turned into a dog haven. And what we made watching those dogs was the tipping point, making our trip possible. It was a miracle. God answered our prayers. In June, we headed west. It was the perfect combination. The beautiful sights of Western states, concentrated time with my 5 favorite people, catching up with old friends in Idaho, and the peace of living in the moment. By the time we made it to Utah, all 6 of our buckets were overflowing. The visit with my sister and her family was just wonderful, and honestly, none of us wanted to come home. We needed something to look forward to get us back on the road, and looking at a map, we realized that Branson really wasn't that far out of the way. It's 3 more hours. I pulled up their site, and Esther was playing in Branson, with tickets available 2 days from then. This is unheard of for Sight and Sound. If you know anything, they're usually months in advance. They're booked. I had goosebumps and thanked God with a smile on my face as I hit submit to complete the purchase. What a full circle blessing from God. While watching the show, I was reminded that nothing is hidden from God. He will always pursue our hearts, and good will triumph over evil every single time. Today, our buckets remain full, and I hold on to that feeling of peace I experienced while away. I am more energized and focused than I have felt in a long time, and for the first time in a few years, I feel like I actually have a reserve built up again. And best of all, I have hope moving forward into this fall. So, despite our best efforts to convince the kids that moving to Montana or Wyoming would be great, do you want to know what their immediate response was? Immediate. What about Fireside? So fear not. We will not be moving west anytime soon. What I love most about this church is that you are all genuinely, sincerely, effortlessly bucket fillers and givers of hope. And I speak for my whole family when I say we love you guys, and we are so blessed and thankful to call you our church family.